Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm your host John, and today here on the channel I got two reviews for you guys. First, we're going to be talking about Bugonia, the latest film released by Yorgos Lanthimos that just came out in theaters, and we'll also be talking about Stiller and Meara. Nothing is Lost, which was directed by Ben Stiller, and it's about the lives of Jerry Stiller and Anne Meara. And you know what? Let's start there. Let's start on the happier end first, because Anne Meara and Jerry Stiller were a comedy duo from way back in the day. They also happen to be the parents of Ben Stiller. And if you're around my age, I'm 33, I imagine a little bit younger, a little bit older, you guys probably came to Ben Stiller first. But Ben Stiller, when he was coming up, a lot of people labeled him a Nepo baby and said a lot of these doors that were open for him were because of his famous parents, Jerry Stiller and Anne Meara. Now, I didn't know about them when I was growing up. I came to Ben Stiller because of, such great comedies like Zoolander and Meet the Parents. That's really where I first found Ben Stiller. So I came to him first. Then, of course, movies like Dodgeball come out and he plays White Goodman. And, things change. That's one of the funniest movies of the 2000s. And that's how I found him. And then Jerry Stiller kind of came along because, I grew up in New York. And The King of Queens takes place in Queens, New York. Kevin James actually went to high school not very far from where I grew up. So knew about Kevin James, saw The King of Queens, and then of course right there is Jerry Stiller, who also got another resurgence in his career because of Seinfeld. So that's how I came to Jerry Stiller. And Anne Meara, I didn't really know too much about her, unfortunately, just because she was a little bit ahead of my time, and she kind of really wasn't involved with acting as much as Jerry Stiller was in older age. But back in the day, they were this great comedy duo who I believe appeared 36 times on The Ed Sullivan Show. And all of that is documented in this documentary right here, directed by Ben Stiller, their son. And it became more than that, he said. It wasn't just going to be a documentary about his famous parents. It actually just started to become about the entire family, because Ben Stiller has kids himself now who I believe are actors as well. And it just talks about the generations that have passed and how, we still are doomed to make the same mistakes that our parents do. Ben Stiller said his parents weren't around a lot when he was a kid, and Jerry Stiller, you can see in an interview, said he felt bad about that, but they were working. That's what they were doing. They lived in New York City, I believe on the Upper West Side, in this beautiful apartment. The documentary, it's taking place because they're selling that apartment that they grew up in, Ben Stiller and his sister, with their famous parents. So they're going through all the memories. Jerry Stiller happened to record everything. He was using the camera. He was recording this stuff on cassettes. So it's all documented. And all that just leads to a fantastic documentary. And we've gotten a lot of documentaries this year that have knocked my socks off about famous celebrities like John Candy, Martin Scorsese, and now you can throw the Stillers in there as well. So it's been a great year as far as documentaries go. Maybe not documentaries about what's going on in the world, but about some of our favorite celebrities. And this is another one. I really enjoyed it. You can watch it on Apple TV Plus right now. I would give it a 8.5 out of 10. It did start to get a little bit long in the tooth, even though it's only an hour and a half documentary. But again, that John Candy documentary from a few weeks ago on Amazon Prime was just the perfect one. So now I'm kind of comparing all these other documentaries to that. And this one is just, pretty standard stuff, but still a very well done one. And I think you guys will appreciate it. You can check it out right now. And then what about Bugonia? This is the latest film from Yorgos Lanthimos, who seems to just never stop working. He's got a new movie out every single year. Poor Things came out, 2 years ago? That won Emma Stone her second Academy Award. Emma Stone is in Bugonia as well as the lead actress. Her fourth time working with Yorgos Lanthimos after appearing in Poor Things, The Favorite, and then Kinds of Kindness from last year, which Kinds of Kindness is actually my favorite Yorgos Lanthimos movie. Yorgos Lanthimos is loved by many different film fans. He and me have never really quite vibed. I haven't seen The Killing of a Sacred Deer yet, but I've seen The Lobster, I've seen Poor Things, and I've seen The Favorite, and like I said, Kinds of Kindness, that is my favorite of his films, and that's an anthology film. And this kind of feels like what would be one of those chapters in Kinds of Kindness, one of those anthology short films that appear in that. Except we extend it out to 2 hours. It stars Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone, and a lot like Eddington, which is another movie I just watched pretty recently for the second time, and I'll be doing that 4K Blu-ray review pretty soon as well. To give you a little peek behind the curtains, I got Eddington sitting right there staring at me right now. So I watched these two movies pretty close, and even if you look at the posters for Bugonia, Eddington, and One Battle After Another, they all have very similar color palettes, and I would say 2025 has a theme, and that theme is they're turning the mirror back on us, back on society as a whole, and what is going on as a society. And I would say movies like One Battle After Another, it's about the rebellion, are people rebelling against what's going on, whereas Bugonia goes a very different place. I would say it's actually probably the most conventional Yorgos Lanthimos movie that I've ever seen. All of his movies have a little bit of weirdness to them. And I've never, like I just said, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of his work, but every once in a while something comes along and I'm like, that really works. And for like 2/3 of this movie, I didn't necessarily love it. I just thought it was a great thriller. I knew what they were going for. I'm trying not to spoil this. I'm not, I went into this completely blind, didn't watch the trailer, so I don't want to spoil any of this for you because, yeah, it's got a great third act that I think ties it all together for me personally, but might not work for everybody else because it's going to definitely recontextualize some of these characters, especially if you thought this movie was going one way. At the very beginning, we find out Emma Stone is the CEO for this big-time company, and I love actually when we first get introduced to her, she's walking out of her house. She's got the Stanley jug thing, freaking cup. My wife has about 4 of those. I mean, just perfect, very timely. We see that she's the head of this corporation, and she's trying to go through all these like HR kinds of things, like tell people they can leave at 5:30, but make sure their work is done as well. Just all the kinds of stuff. If you've ever worked at a corporation, this movie is clearly very anti-corporate. But then on the other side of that, you have the Jesse Plemons character, Teddy, who is doing a phenomenal job in this movie. Both Emma Stone's and Jesse Plemons, I could see getting Academy Award nominations for their performances in this film because, I mean, this is by far the best Jesse Plemons I've ever seen. And he got introduced to me, I'm sure like a lot of other people, because of Breaking Bad. I forget what his name is. Was that character's name Todd? But the first time we saw him, it just shocked the hell out of us. And then as time has gone on, because that's like, 14, 15 years ago now, he's become one of our great actors, and I think now he'll finally get that appreciation he deserves as the character of Teddy. This guy who just got sucked down a rabbit hole, which we've seen so many other people get sucked down these rabbit holes on the internet, and even Emma Stone's character brings out to him, you've been on the screen too much, and, he lives in this big house with his cousin, who I think he has some sort of learning disability. I'm not 100% sure, but he's a little bit off, and it's just the two of them, and we find out as the movie goes on, Teddy has a lot of trauma, a lot of things have happened to him in his life that probably have led him to this point, like a lot of other people living in the world now, where they buy into all these conspiracy theories, whether it be on the left or right, and they're you've gotten really out in the weeds here, buddy. And that's kind of what this movie is really all about, is again turning the mirror on us. This is a movie that's very hard to talk about without spoilers as well, so maybe I'll pick up the 4K Blu-ray and do a full review of it, with spoilers, because it's a really dense film, and you can just watch it without all of those themes in there as well. You can just watch this as a great thriller, because it is a very good thriller from beginning to end, and I think it pays off in the end, but I can also imagine that a lot of people might be like, I don't know. I don't really like that. I wish it would have been a little bit easier to digest. And I could see that, but I still like the way they went with this. It kind of reminded me of another movie that a lot of people don't really like, and that's Don't Look Up from a couple years ago, directed by Adam McKay. Kind of reminded me a little bit about that. I enjoy movies that kind of look at society. I know not everybody loves these kinds of things, and you can just go into this, watch this as a good popcorn thriller, but I still think if you go into this and really try and dig deep and watch this movie for what it's really trying to tell you, and with all the other great movies that have come out this year, also trying to explore similar themes, I really think it's fantastic. I think it's one of the best films of 2025. It doesn't quite crack my top 3, but for a Yorgos Lanthimos movie where I'm always very hesitant to check them out, even though Emma Stone is my favorite actress of all time, it still can be a little bit tough for me to get excited about a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, but this is definitely one I'm excited about, and I would give this one a 9 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed those reviews, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships, guys, so if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel, like John Doe Juggalo, Ben Rondo, and Harvey Scott, you can do that. Or you can even become a channel director, like Uncle V, Kevin Kruger, Nicholas Head, Stone Gasman, and of course, Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews. Or you can even bump it up to the channel bankroll members like Mr. Smelly Potato. But of course, guys, if you got no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.